Welcome back to CBS News 24/7's coverage of President Trump's State of the Union address. And we are joined now by a New York Republican, Congressman Mike Lawler. Congressman, thank you very much for being here. Appreciate your time tonight.
Thanks for having me, Tony.
So what's your over-under here? Is President Trump going to break Bill Clinton's 88-minute record for longest State of the Union?
Yeah, I think that's a good bet. I think this is probably going over 2 hours.
Oh boy!
2
Wow!
hours.
I hope you had a very big dinner. In those 2 hours, what are you hoping not to hear the president talk about?
Look, I think the American people want to hear about not only the successes that have occurred under the first year, but about the future and what the president and Congress can do to address the issues most acutely impacting the country, from health care and housing and energy prices to our immigration crisis. We have an immigration system that hasn't been fixed in 40 years. I was born in September of 1986. It hasn't been fixed since before that. So we have a lot of work ahead of us. I feel very good about a lot of things that we have been able to accomplish in this first year, including passing the largest tax cut in American history. The average New Yorker that I represent is going to see a $4,000 tax cut, especially because we were able to lift the cap on salt, something that I champion, the state and local tax deduction. But Americans want us to focus like a laser beam on affordability, and that needs to be front and center in the president's message tonight.
You know, Congressman, you touched on something. I want to come back to affordability, but you touched on something very interesting there. It almost seemed like you were walking up to the edge of talking about comprehensive immigration reform. Sometimes you hear the president talk about having a heart when it comes to the people who've been here for a long time, who've started a family, who have a business, who are contributing to society, finding a way to normalize them. Do you think the time might finally be right now that the border is truly sealed off? I've been down there myself. To talk about normalizing some of the people who are here?
I do. I wrote a New York Times op-ed a few weeks ago after the tragedies in Minneapolis and pointed out a few basic points, which is, number one, the border is secure thanks to President Trump. We've had 9 straight months of net zero illegal entry into the country. That is a positive thing. That is what the American people demanded in November of 2024, and President Trump delivered on that. They also wanted dangerous criminals deported out of our country. You saw 675,000 people deported last year, 1.9 million self-deporting. But I do believe the American people want us to use a little bit of common sense when it comes to people who have been in this country more than 5 years, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, who are participating in the workforce, whose children and grandchildren may in fact be American citizens. It's why I've been a co-lead on the Dignity Act last Congress and this Congress, not to provide amnesty, not to provide a pathway to citizenship, but to provide a pathway to legal status so that people who are not committing criminal offenses, who are paying a fine, who are paying back taxes, who are not collecting government benefits, and have been here over 5 years, are able to stay here legally and participate in our economy, in our workforce, without fear of deportation. I think there is a balanced approach that can be had here, and I think President Trump is one of the few people that can actually bridge this divide, having secured the border and restored trust with the American people, that we can finally stop illegal immigration into our country.
Congressman Lawler, it's Margaret Brennan. Good to talk to you. On the border, the president does get good marks on his deportation policy. However, you are seeing some apprehension among Americans. Our latest CBS polling shows that 58% of Americans disapprove of the president's handling of immigration. I've spoken to Republicans, governors who say when it comes to legal pathways, things like temporary protected status, repealing it for Haitians and Venezuelans, for example, or changing of other types of asylum processes, legal pathways, that they are not comfortable with how the president has been implementing his policies. Are you comfortable with all the ways he's been implementing his policies? Would you like to hear some of the compassion you're talking about tonight? Like, is there a way to thread that needle?
Look, I think this is emblematic of the problem. Congress has not fixed our broken immigration system in 40 years, not since Ronald Reagan, working with a bipartisan Congress to get immigration reform done. Have we done it? And so from my vantage point, you brought up, Haitian TPS, for instance. I represent a community in Spring Valley, New York, the second largest Haitian diaspora per capita. We have many Haitians that have been here on TPS that are participating in our healthcare system, nurses, serving as direct support providers in the IDD community, the intellectually and developmentally disabled community. These folks are part of our community. They're part of our workforce. They provide a critical service. And so just revoking TPS, that is something I've pushed back against. I've introduced legislation to extend TPS for the Haitian community. I do believe there is an opportunity here if folks put aside the partisan bickering and actually focus on the real issue at hand. The president secured the border. He was right about that issue. He deported criminal aliens. He was right about that issue. He now has an opportunity to address the larger problems within our healthcare system. And I will point out, part of the problem that we saw in Minneapolis was the sanctuary city policies. The local law enforcement in Minneapolis was prohibited from cooperating with ICE agents. They were prohibited from doing crowd control and traffic control. That's what allowed the protesters to come into close contact with ICE agents. That never should have happened. And so I think there's a balance that can be done here, that we address the problems in the immigration system, but also end ridiculous policies like sanctuary cities that do not make us safer, especially when they won't honor detainers on people who commit crimes under state law. That is a big fundamental problem.
Respectfully, in the case of Minneapolis, the police chief there, who I spoke to about exactly this, also said the federal government was not cooperating or sharing information with local law enforcement. So that isn't necessarily a sanctuary system.
They weren't honoring, respectfully, Margaret, they were not honoring the detainers. And the PBA president pointed this out. He said this could have been prevented. But that's different than
securing a location for a deportation raid to capture someone.
If you actually honor the detainer and have a transfer at a jail, that is far safer than law enforcement having to go into a community. And that's the fundamental problem here. We could have and should have greater cooperation between federal, state, and local law enforcement when it comes to our immigration system. But again, this to me requires a comprehensive approach on how we actually fix this system. It's not one or the other. It's all of the above.
Congressman Mike Lawler, thank you very much. We really appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you. Appreciate it.